Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, geeks and nerds and ambassadors everywhere, and fellow council members, and welcome back to the Ambassadorial Wing and Council of the Ones Babylon 5 review and part 2 of our discussion on objects in motion and objects at rest. And with me, as always, are my fellow council members. You know them, you love them. They are wacky, they are crazy. Of course, they had to wacky to work with me. Mountains of Elysium, Fiona Wolf, and the head of MedLab, Lord Koj. My friends,
Yeah.
good to see y'all once again. Pleasure having y'all back on board, of course. And well, we are coming up on the finale to season 5 of Babylon 5 and the series finale of B5 in general. So,
AKA, this is the part where the boot drop comes in that more than one linear about. Oh no! Oh no!
yep, pretty
The
much
one that
so.
he didn't want to listen to. Oh no!
Yep. Everything goes a little pear-shaped for Mr. Lanier in this episode. So, but
Ooh.
I have done my thing. Lord Koj has got a finite amount of time before he has to get back to MedLab, so we're going to let him have the floor for a little bit so that he can get his thoughts out on these two episodes or episode, whichever he's wanting to discuss first. So, with all that being said, make sure you smash that like button, share this out with all your friends who are fans of good sci-fi, not bad sci-fi, not depressing sci-fi, not cringe-worthy sci-fi, but competently written, excellently performed, joyous sci-fi.
And it's very exquisite. It's a fine wine that ages well with time.
Not
That is true.
dystopian. So much stuff
It's-
has a dystopian bent to it nowadays.
It's like a fine Bavare that's been aged for 100 years. So, Lord Koj, with that, the floor is yours, my friend. Objects in motion, objects at rest. Your thoughts, my friend.
Thank you very much. I will focus because I live in limited time. I didn't because I tend to ramble, as you all know. So I just focus on objects at rest. Um, uh, this is essentially the last episode of season 5, kind of, because the last one was shot during season 4, but wasn't edited until season 5. So come what may, this was like everyone on set filming for the last day. So when they had their goodbye and everyone showed up in the Zocalo to say goodbye to Delenn and Sheridan, hardcore fans, we all know that that's all cast and crew. You could even see Londo without makeup in the background, and Peter Jurassic. So that moment is just really beautiful, and I felt like that was the last goodbye. And I like when second to last episodes of a season, of a series, of a saga is the last one. Therefore, the last one kind of works like an epilogue, kind of like in Lord of the Rings when they save the day. You get this time in the Shire, and then you get this time of everyone moving along, where they're gonna go. It's just a nice way to say goodbye without an abrupt ending, and I really appreciate that. And I love what Delenn says, and I'll let you guys elaborate on that, but I just want to touch on that one. But my main thing is my boy G'Kar comes full circle just as any other character. And as we saw the ending of season 1, we see him as a message to Natoth. And in the ending of season 5, we see him as a message and a voice message, video message to Talon. And even before this, objects in motion, I guess I am talking about that. We see Sheridan say goodbye to G'Kar as good friends, whereas in season 1 we saw Sinclair talk to G'Kar about crossroads, and they were both different people at that time. And it's just a beautiful full circle of G'Kar as a character, and reflecting as all the other characters how far they come, the family bond they made. And I always get emotional in this because every time I see this episode, there's something going on with my life. For this one, fandom wise, with the Snarka movement, I did a lot. I met a lot of great people. We did a lot of good things. There's some bad things, and we hear about toxicity and harassment, and I've been slandered, behind the scenes and in group chats by colleagues and people I thought were friends. And there's a lot of ugly, just like in any transition. But I don't let that get to me because it's not true anyways. It's just that there's so much we do and things that we're passionate about that we endure. But on top of that, there's so much we build that carry on and make friendships that bond and carry on more. And we actually grow more than we get beat up with. And I feel like we could go the route of Jakar, where we grow from everything and do our best and follow our calling, or we could be trapped in what we can't have and let that take us down forever, like Lanier did. I feel Lanier is one person who kind of tragically fails to move on in his own inner wealth, because there's
Oh.
material wealth and everything. But if we have invest in our inner happiness and all that and grow from that, where our wealth is abundant,
Or
and
you could have a
it's
kicker
just
on your
nice seeing
shoulder.
all that reflected here, because I like what Jakar, sorry, Fiona, but I like what Jakar said when he was trying to leave, because he's become a distraction for the people. And but also him himself, I think his role has distracted him from his growth, because he's become a new person, and I think he wants to go further and grow and become a better person, and that's more important than fame, wealth. And I admire that, because his passing words of wisdom to Talon was lead our people, but in the scope of things, I think it's just to help other people and lead them best you can with oh, I forgot the words. It was with fairness, with purpose, and with honor. And I think those are good tools to carry with you in any time, whatever's going on in the world, politics, friends, circles, life. And to end that note, what Sheridan says to his unborn child as a message is that home isn't a physical place, it's wherever your passions take you. So when I take all these pieces together from this long journey we've had and I apply it to my life, it just uh, encourages me to look at the good we've done, not let the bad take you down, and move forward, as these objects are in motion and in rest, because that's just the circle of things, and we'll just keep pressing on, And I like that a lot. And this was a very, very beautiful episode, and a really nice send off. And of course, Sleeping in Light is the next installment of this finale trilogy. And I don't mean to get a little preachy here, but I think Sleeping in Light is beautiful, because in life we have objects in motion and then objects in rest when we go on to the next level, and we put things aside. And then Sleeping in Light, I think, reflects to Sheridan, because in the beginning, Lockley is at the command center looking out into space, and she asks him what's out there, and he says the truth. And you could see Sheridan is thinking deeply about his journey, his future, and Lockley's like, "Whoa, you got a lot on your plate," because she looked at him and she didn't understand, but I think she knew his tone, that he's ready to go beyond the rim without knowing it, if that makes sense. Because I was talking to someone special yesterday, and we were talking about uh, light, and that being a symbol used for God a lot, and it's even in a lot of scriptures that if you step into the light, and then you kind of become the light, and then when you embrace the heavenly truth of being good, embracing God in your life, understanding whatever you all believe, everyone's all different, but for me, where I'm coming from, when you get to that point, you're just ready for, I guess, not necessarily heaven, but happiness and purity. And I feel that's what Sheridan is looking into the future of, because sleeping in light is like you fall asleep, you pass on beyond the rim to the next stage, and we kind of see that in we will see that in Sleeping in Light. So I feel like this is just a beautiful crescendo of this whole journey of Babylon 5. And yeah, that's all my notes I had for this.
Well, and as always, Lord Koji, very articulate, very well said, and a lot to unpack there. And I cannot say I disagree with much of it. I will say one thing in terms of one comment that you made. It's not necessarily so much to the episode, but in terms of those that have slandered you and who have misrepresented you and stabbed you in the back. there is Kojay's family, there is me, and then there is God. Pray you never meet Kojay's family or me. That's all I'll
That's
say.
very kind of you, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you.
And this is the other thing I say to the
But I'm a man of
detractors.
peace. It's okay. They're gone. They're out of my life. But yeah.
I will make one final remark. This is to the detractors of Lord Kojay.
Holy spaghetti western. They're definitely gone. Wow, you just took care of it. See, there, no more problems ever. Good aim. Good aim.
I have my moments. Not often, but I have them. But also want to say to the chat, Beer 31, Archer Cullen, and Drake Tungsten, gentlemen, good to see you all. Thank you for popping in this afternoon. So,
sorry, I have one more thing. I just remembered it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead, Kojay. Go ahead.
No, because I was watching a stream of another thing for Snyder Cut, and Zod Rider was on that, and a few others. The Bat Channel. I think some of us are familiar with them. As far as the movement goes with Snyder Cut, Skywalker the Jedi, he was mentioning some of like people who first started the movement that they were kind of tired, and yeah, we put a lot of energy and heart into this. And he said something about passing the torch to the next generation to do more for the movie, and that was cool to hear to see that and then watch this episode, because essentially we see the passing of the torch of every character. Franklin is passing the torch of the medical lab to his I guess like his second in command in the med bay.
Hobbs,
And,
I think.
Right. And then we have Talon, we have Lockley, number one became a head of intelligence. It's like we're passing the torch, and that's what happens in life. And I think that's beautiful, to keep the spirit going, and we entrust good people after us, or we inspire others to carry the torch and do more good. And that was a beautiful thing to see, and also see like 2 days ago kind of reflected in real life. Because Babylon 5, it's sci-fi, but man, what a journey. It's got so much that we could apply to our life, and it's how many decades old? It doesn't get old. It's just so great.
When it ended. Well, 99 is when it ended, technically. So.
Yeah.
And of course,
okay, I'm done.
Now, of course, we will be covering Crusade once we do finish season 5 and the two other TV movies, River of Souls and Call to Arms. So,
yeah.
But the one I did love Jakar's monologue to Talon, but I loved Sheridan's we know the name of the child, David Sheridan, who will go through his own trials and his own darkness, much like his mother and father did, and many of those closest to him had to as well, including Londo. Of course, this episode, Objects at Rest, does introduce the whole issue of Londo as an agent of the Drakh, and for a second, Delenn peers through the veil that
yep, much like she did with Morden that first time. Yeah. Oh my.
So, it's but what Sheridan said to his child, to his what would be eventually their son, him and Delenn's son David, is very much many things that I believe our parents would say to us if they knew that their time was short. And, not to get overly emotional or sentimental here, last week was Father Ambassador, would have been his 77th birthday, and celebrated that with a little special stream I did this past Sunday, discussing the movie Amadeus, which great film of the 1980s, absolute classic. It's beautiful, it's gorgeous, both to the eye and to the ear. But I have very few memories of him, but I remember him saying a few things that very much resonated with what Sheridan was saying to him and Delenn's son. We know it's going to be it's going to be a boy. It's going to be their son David. We know that from the episode War Without End, when he jumps into the future. And it's very heartening to hear both Jakar and Sheridan speaking to their heirs, to their successors. And it's I think for those of us that do have children, sadly, me and Ma'am Ambassador will probably ever have that opportunity. But we've had many people in our lives who we've tried to leave a positive impact upon, and those that have left a positive impact upon us. And the one piece of advice that John gives to David, even if the entire world is screaming and saying that what you're standing for is wrong, do it anyway because you know it is right. It kind of echoes a fairly well-regarded speech within the first three phases of the MCU. And it's the speech that Sharon Carter gives at her Aunt Peggy's funeral. And I remember that speech very well. It's not terribly long, but it's very powerful. And I quote thusly: "Compromise where you can, but when you can't, don't. Even when the whole world is telling you that something wrong is something right, it is your duty to plant yourself like a tree. And when the whole world tells you to move, you say, no, you move." In a lot of ways, that's what John was saying to his son. And I think it's a principle that, especially nowadays, is very timely, because from so many corners of our society, and for those of us that live here in the US, we have so many different groups, both elected and non-elected, who are saying that something wrong is something right. And I don't mean to get on my soapbox, but I will for a moment here, so please forgive me if I do digress. We all here have our principles, whether we incorporated them through life lessons or they were something that was instilled in us as we grew up. And if we lose those principles, if we kowtow to the mob, to the wrong, no, that's not the word I want to use. If we kowtow to the mob or the crowd, then we lose something of ourselves. And that is something that we should never compromise. To quote another favorite movie of mine, do not compromise, even in the face of Armageddon. Even if you have to stand completely and utterly alone for what you know and what you believe is right, then resign yourself to the fact that you do stand alone. But do not fear it. For the man or woman who stands alone, whether you believe in him or not, is never alone. For those of us who believe, God and Christ and the Holy Spirit stand with us. And those who think like us stand with us as well. And Elysium said perfectly, or John did, in Intersections of Real Time. How can you win? Every time I say no. All right. And with that, I do step off my soapbox and I yield my time.
That was well said, though.
Yeah,
When
well
you were saying
said.
that, I was remembering that classic picture from World War II where everyone's got their arms up for Heil Hitler Nazi stuff, but there's one person just has his arms crossed. He's like, you know, it's important to stand on your principles and what you believe in. Yeah, it's a lot sometimes. The mob isn't always that's like that's the classic metaphor of the zombie movies. That's the scariness of a mob, essentially. Dramatized in like a sci-fi way.
Mhm.
I see the mob of any group going crazy over anything. I step back. I can't get into that because it's too much of a rush
Oh,
of
you mean like
emotions and
Twitter
things spin
Twitter?
out. What? What did you say?
Twitter's having kind of a zombie moment with lots of stuff in clown world right
Very
now.
much so. Very much so. I'm like fortifying my place. So I was like, stay out.
But no, there's a reason why certain kinds of shows or movies will go past like whatever the era boundary that they were made in, because they use kind of more universal kind of themes that can basically pop up from time and time again. That's why I'll remember something like Babylon 5 and say, in comparison to even though it's fun, I don't know if the Orville's going to be remembered like 20, 30 years from now. Just as an example.
It might be.
On that note, I must go though.
Okay.
Catch y'all soon, and Basio, tell people how we do the shows, and I love y'all, and God bless.
God bless,
Bye-bye.
Kadri. We'll talk to you later,
Okay.
bud.
Oh
Have a
man,
good night.
and poor Londo asking Sheridan, "Do you have any liquor? Please, God, man, do you have any liquor? I have to knock this stupid keeper
Yeah.
out and warn you, but I can't warn you because the Minbari find liquor to be poison. No."
Yeah,
Oh.
unfortunately, the Minbari cannot imbibe liquor because it causes them to either die or go into a psychotic state.
Uh-oh.
So,
But you could tell Londo wanted to get like kind of shit faced so he could warn them. So he
Yeah.
could really,
Yes.
really warn them.
yeah.
Oopsie. Oh man. Londo started out so happy, and now he's in the most gilded cage ever.
Pretty much.
Possibly the most tragic character.
Yeah, that's true too. There was one other part of this episode that obviously we should discuss, and that is, of course, the sad case of Mr. Lanier and Elysium Fiona. I'm going to kind of open up the discussion on that particular point with you both. Mr. Lanier.
He made a lot of big mistakes right there. He was going to go back and try to save Sheridan, but the fact that he initially ran off, oh man, that went against basically what he stood for, all because he wanted to be in Sheridan's position of being the husband. It's like, oh no. Oh no.
It's something, I think, a danger in Minbari society where there's repression, and Lanier's mixing. Previous Lanier would have just been an acolyte in the temple or stayed within the religious caste. He would not have faced such difficulties. Then setting out onto the world, I think beginning when he made Garibaldi's motorcycle, where he saw rebellion, he could see the beginnings of Lanier stepping outside his strict life path.
Mm-hmm.
And coming here, I think, with all Lanier has been through, it's somewhat similar to Lita.
Yeah,
Lanier
but
has been...
his thing has even bigger consequences, though. I mean, at least Lita can come and go in the station usually, but after this, Lanier's not even going to be wanted in Minbari space.
I think, though, to be fair, at
like,
the end, Sheridan did say, "We're keeping this. What stays in a mile, what happens in a mile stays in a mile." He wanted to leave the door open for Lanier to return, to give him the opportunity, and
oh yeah,
the
but
way,
based on how Lanier acts, he wouldn't go anywhere
yes,
near Mimbar or anything, or even Mimbari territory, which probably explains why he goes off with Lita eventually to help with the Psychor issues, because that's as far away from his own issues as he can get.
Yeah. And, it kind of echoes what happened between Marcus and Ivanova when she says to Franklin very poignantly, all love is unrequited. In this particular instance, it is because the one that you love loves someone else. And, thankfully, I have never had to deal with a situation like that because I have never. I'm going to say this. I'm going to put this in our context rather than in Minbari context. I have never pursued another man or woman's. Well, in this particular case, I've never pursued another man's wife or girlfriend or anything of that sort because I believe that that sort of thing is shameful. It is dishonoring. It is disrespectful.
Well, that, and when you take into account that there's plenty of people out there that you can form that kind of relationship with, it's not like it's one and done. For Lanier, he just couldn't get off that path. He's like, it's Delenn or nobody, even though there's tons of other Minbari out there that he probably could have, fallen for. But, yeah.
I mean, I don't think that the Endless Shock were an order of monks where you weren't allowed to have relations.
No,
or have
because
relationships.
It was mentioned during the Shadow War. Another Minbari mentioned that his family took up the On the Shock thing, so he took it up in honor of them. So On the Shock are allowed to have kids. It's not like
yeah, it's not like the Jedi, the repressive Jedi Order who doesn't allow you to even smile or have happy thoughts or anything. The Endless Shock, at least they let you. At least they let you have a waifu or a hubby.
I think the EU order for Luke's setup was pretty on point. Read the EU books if you want to see a more balanced Jedi Order that has families.
Yes, but and Colin brings up a good point and everything. And if this is in fact the case with Bill Mummy, if he wasn't very happy, I mean, I get that, but unfortunately, they were kind of under time restraints. But, I will say this for Bill Mummy and his performance, it was pretty damn good, even though he wasn't happy about it. It's...
Well, I imagine they probably would have wrapped some of that stuff up in Crusade, where, had they thought of it. But it's not like Delenn hated him. You can see it in Sleeping in the Light when she mentioned Lanier by name. Yeah. Kind of like how Ivanova eventually says Marcus again. But... But no, I could totally get that. Like, especially if you, the actor, is really invested in what your character's doing.
Yeah. And Beer 31 brings up an interesting point. This episode aired on November 18th, the same day as Star Trek Deep Space Nine aired. The Siege of AR 558 aired, in which Bill Mummy made a guest appearance. Interesting. Thank you, Beer 31. Didn't know that. So thank you for that little factoid. Appreciate it. But, Elysium, go ahead. I think you were going to say something, so please.
I was about to say there that there's a lot of crossover of actors between Trek and Babylon 5. I think, Jakar's actor, or what is it, his name, Andrei Katsoulis, was Tomalak in
Next Generation. Yep.
Next Generation.
He was one of the few likable Romulan officers that we liked. At least he had a sense of humor.
He was also in a video game, Primal. He played the gargoyle character that would give the main character like hints and tips and everything. I bought it mainly because he was in that game, so I could listen to him talking more.
I'm trying to think. I think was it Patricia Tallman was Jadzia Dax, that actress. I can't think of her name. Was her stunt double for Terry Farrell? Was her stunt double for DS9? And she's on screen in a couple of episodes, but no speaking roles.
Interesting.
Oh man,
Well,
and this episode does point out the fact that the Drock do have a telepathic connection with their keepers, because good old Mister Head Drockman himself is like, very good, Emperor Valari, you did a great job. Now we just gotta wait for that thing to hatch. Isn't it grand? Oh no. Oh, oh, yeah.
the thing that really drives me nuts, even though they do regard Londo as a friend, I can't believe that they didn't scan that urn. Little plot hole.
Yeah.
Little plot hole. Why you're going to
They
give this
do-
to your child?
They do
Why
cover a little bit of that in the books, the Centauri trilogy. They do mention that. And they're like, dang, we should have looked into it hard. And Delenn was even saying, like, I noticed something off about Londo, like a shadow and everything falling over. And they do go into that in the books a little bit. It's like, we should have trusted our gut. It like knocked him out or something, or got him drunk off his rocker.
Yeah, something, anything. Come on. He's trying to say something without actually saying something. Come on, get your heads out of your butts, guys. Seriously.
But I think in the case, it's usually, from a writing standpoint, you can't make the heroes on the ball 100% of the time. So I'm guessing they just did that for the fact that they took Londo on his word because he was their friend, a very close friend for a while.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's the case you just to trust your friends, to trust those you believe in, and take them at their word. Now, sometimes that comes back to bite you, but I'd prefer to live in a world where you can give your trust to someone.
Yes. Well, I have been strangely fortunate in my life, and I think we can all say the same, that we have had people in our lives that we can implicitly trust and never have to question them at their word. And of course, the counter is also true. We have had people who we thought we could trust, not necessarily naming any names, nor am I implying anything, just speaking in generality here. And then you've come to find out that these people are completely and utterly duplicitous. They are about as two-faced and slimy as they come. And that, I will say this very specifically, very, very specifically, outside of the context of YouTube or anything online. The church I just left a little over a year ago, which actually, yeah, it would be a year, give or take. The pastor that I thought was somebody that I could trust, someone that I thought I could rely on, somebody who I thought was an honest individual acting in the best interest of his congregation and acting as a good representative of God and Jesus Christ, turned out to be anything but. He kowtowed to, and yes, I will be a bit abrasive here when I say this, he kowtowed to a bunch of blue hairs and a bunch of stodgy old farts whose idea of Christian compassion and Christian empathy was about as shallow as a puddle of spit. And it is sad to see Londo be put in this position, but at the same time, you have to understand he kind of did this to himself.
Well, he got warned by the seers. You have X amount of chances to prevent this path from happening. But then again, you gotta wonder how would the Centauri people be? Like, what state would they be in had anybody else been under those reigns? Makes you wonder.
It's true, yeah. But at the same time, you feel bad for him, but at the same time,
you knew that boot was going to drop, kind of like Lanier's. You just knew that boot was going to drop, and he wasn't going to let it go
Yeah.
because he even confessed to Marcus at one point. The revealing the secrets thing, and that was a couple of seasons ago. So he hasn't let go of that for years. Oh my goodness!
Now that was back in what I think that was back in season 3, because that's when Marcus first came in, like formally, was season 3.
Yep, like early to
And-
mid season 3. So Lanier's been wrestling with this for a while.
Yeah. And again, I say this about Mr. Lanier. Even in human standards, he was acting scummy. He was going after another man's wife.
And he knew
Yes.
that Delenn had feelings for Sheridan because he admitted it as much to Marcus. It's like, I know she's fated for another. It's like, you should have. Ah, man. In that case, it would have been better for him just to accept her feelings as more motherly towards him and then just try to find somebody else.
Yeah, she could have hooked him up with a nice Minbari girl. Somebody potentially from his own clan, or at least from the same caste. Instead, she just leaves him pining, and I'm going to say this to Lynn. Get your hand out of your hybrid butt and find Lanier a nice Minbari girl to well, I hate to put it this way, but to shack up with. I hate to say it that way, but I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek here.
Well, I think that's the reason why
let's find Mr. Lanier. Go ahead.
Like in some stories, I think that's the reason why I enjoy it when the main couple finds each other and then they stay hooked up and then they face the world together. Like it's refreshing to find stories where they're stable romantically and then you throw other things for a loop. But I kind of get the way they did that because in writing terms, having Lanier have this kind of issue gave it more like well, what's going to happen in the future? What kind of mistakes is he going to make? But they could have. Well, I'd say out of all of them, they gave Lanier the as far as like the side cast goes, they gave Lanier a pretty robust character arc. So for people who like dynamic arcs, I think Veer did a very excellent job of that. Yeah. And they did it without like giving him some of the pitfalls that they gave Lanier too. Like, yeah, Lanier had some issues with Delenn, but Veer had some issues with prior girls. But they had him move on from that rather than getting hung up on it. Like they could have had him get hung up on Lindesty, but they never did. In fact, in the end, Veer becomes emperor and he has like 3 or 4 wives or something. You can see it when he's with Zach Allen in the next episode.
Yeah, but
Zach is trying to pull him away from all his wives.
Yeah, but Lindesty, she wasn't stable.
No,
if you remember, she was very, very out there. She thought that the Narn were subhuman. I'm sorry, yeah. I don't. But
I'm saying like they didn't give Lanier like a quest to try to rehabilitate her because not Lanier but Veer. Veer really didn't try to impose certain kinds of things on his relationships. He just tried to find the people that would mesh the most with him, which surprisingly was Ivanova and a couple others, not like romantically, but just on a friendship kind of basis. And that in turn helped him out in the wife category with other people. But you can see some of it also in that Satori trilogy. Like these episodes tie like almost directly into those books. It's pretty fun.
Oh. And hello to the chat. Jacob Ironside. Jacob, good to see you, bud. And he says, Ambassador Wink, hello. I'm in the middle of rewatching Babylon 5. Well, Jacob, excellent. Glad to hear that. And Drake Tugson, well, crap. It jumped on me. Why I meant to bring this up anyway. But that wouldn't have been fair to the girl if he had always been in love with Delenn. It didn't work out very well for our royal family. I get exactly what you're saying, Archer. I get what you're saying. Yeah, Delenn should have hooked him up. Yep.
Oh man.
Or maybe John should have. He's like, okay, Lanier, he's like, I get that you're in love with my wife, but no. Now,
you know what?
Here's what we are.
Sad to say, I think Marcus would have been able to help out in that regard if he had been still alive. Like, I think Marcus would have been able to be a good wingman for Lanier. Be like, don't do this. You're doing the same mistake I made with Ivanova.
Yeah. Sort
where
of.
they both didn't get their feelings off their chest properly. They kind of threw like aside glances. Like, and in Marcus's case, he did a deathbed confession. Like, no, Marcus, no.
I wonder though, I think, would anything have helped? Because Lanier did see Delena's perfection, had her on a pedestal. I don't think trying to
Yeah,
hook him
and
up with
sometimes
anyone would have worked.
sometimes it's
Well-
hard to knock people off that pedestal, like, and see them just as a normal person. Because if Lanier had been able to make that jump, he would have realized, like, yes, Delenn has a lot of really great qualities, but there's also some areas where she's blindsided in. You know, heck, even Naroon was able to blindside her with the whole Ring of Fire trial.
Yes.
Well, here's the thing. Maybe they needed to have an intervention for Lanier. You get John, you get Delenn, maybe get Garibaldi,
Yes.
and you're like, and maybe get a couple, maybe get the his direct trainer or whoever it is with the endless shock, and they're like, okay, Lanier, my dude, my brother, we gotta talk. This ain't gonna work. You see this thing
Thou
on my
shalt
hand?
not covet another man's wife.
You see this little thing on my hand? Delenn's got one too. It's called a wedding ring. We're married. You need to get over this. And she could have been like, Lanier, I know that you have feelings for me, but here's the deal. I love John. Now, I love you, but not in the way you want me to love you. I love you like a brother, perhaps like a son, but it ain't gonna happen. So, and then
man.
have Garibaldi in and come in and just Gibbs slap Lanier up the back of his head, and he'd be like, dude, you need to put aside the endless shock thing for a while till you get your head on straight. You're going to come with me to Mars, and we're going to find you a nice girl, or maybe not a nice girl, to kind of shake the cobwebs off your equipment. Me and Lise will help you out. But he's like, I swear, you
Oh,
come
man.
after Lise, I will shove you out in airlock.
In a way, like, his romantic setup mirrored Marcus, like, almost one for one. You know, Marcus was trying to save himself for the right lady, and he lost the first lady he loved on the colony, to the shadows.
Mhm.
They both had horrible luck in the romance department. I mean, Bob was right. Veer got to second or third base or something. Those two never did. Oh.
Nope.
I have an awful
No,
feeling.
you're
I
fine.
wonder, had Delenn hooked up with Naroon, would Lanier have been as we'll say honestly creepy? Because he did look down on humans. He did say to Marcus, we are better than you. So I think Lanier had some deep-seated animosity. He did, like, when we start off with Sheridan, he did say he despised Sheridan because Sheridan killed some of his family with the Dark Star. And I have a feeling Lanier had some issues that humans have, where we have problems with other races. There is that element about
I
Lanier.
think Lanier definitely had his preferences. Like that, and I think he honestly fell in love with Delenn even before the hybridization happened. So he didn't
Yes.
take it as personally as other Minbari did with, like, which one are you now? Are you a human or are you one of us? You know, that sort of thing. Oh boy.
If I had been her, you know what I would have said? I am as Valen meant me to be. Now wrap that around
He's
your
my great, great, great
now wrap
ex-grandpa.
that around your head, Junior, because guess what? We've all got a little bit of human DNA in us somewhere.
Yep. Because
So-
good old
Yeah.
Balin and Catherine Sakai had a couple of kids, and those kids had kids. Ah. Now, if I had to guess, they probably convert, like the Vorlons probably helped convert Catherine Sakai to, mostly Minbari on the outside, so that they could, kind of go incognito 1,000 years into the past. Woo! But no, I'm looking at some of this episode in the background right now, and I forgot how fast Sheridan passed off. Like, hey, Delenn, can you make a speech for us in the Zocalo again?
He passed that so hard she had whiplash. But I will say this: she had she made it as always. Delenn, of course, through the words of JMS, gave a very well said farewell address to the people of B5. And it's interesting because I believe in some languages, in Earth languages, obviously, because we know of no alien languages yet, there is no corresponding term to goodbye. I don't know any off the top of my head, but I'd have to do the research, and I didn't have the time. So sorry, gentle viewer, or viewers rather, I should say.
The
I didn't have the
possibility
time.
of meeting again. That's what it is. Like
Yeah.
that's why they don't really say goodbye. Kind of like how even Lanier said, Lanier, even though he's telling Delenn goodbye, Delenn's like, no, I think we'll meet again. They both try to go with the angle that they'll meet again at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, ooh boy, a whole lot of different kinds of goodbyes in this episode.
It's true. We have come so far in this series. We've had so many great discussions, and here we are. We are essentially, at least for the main canonical series, we are just about at Journey's End. And to give you all a little bit of a heads up, the next couple of weeks we are going to be doing something a little bit different, something a little bit special. Next Thursday and the following Thursday, we will actually not be doing our normal review. We are working out logistics for it, but the next couple of Thursdays, we are going to be doing watch-alongs for the last two TV movies, River of Souls and Call to Arms. And of course, we will do our full review, and it might be a two-parter as well, as like with Objects in Motion and Objects at Rest was. But we will be doing watch-alongs for next week for River of Souls, and then the following week for Call to Arms. And if you do not have a copy of either one of those movies, we will have the means for you all to watch along with us and everything as we watch along and give our commentary on these two films. So those streams will be a little bit longer than normal and everything, but we hope that you will join us and that you hopefully will enjoy it. I imagine you all will. You've been here this long. But, I think we are going to wrap up here in a few minutes, but I want to make just a couple of remarks. I'll probably make something else again and everything when we hit Sleeping in Light.
Ooh,
and then, of course,
I
when
know.
we hit...
Most valuable player for this episode, the Minbari fighting pike, saved everyone.
Yes. Yes, it did.
It wrecked that door.
Just had to figure out how to use it properly. He's like, okay, this isn't working, so let's try it. Let's try another way. And he's like, okay, I'm just going to pop it through the glass, and it worked. So,
it's like the MacGyver of tools in the Babylon 5 universe. Not only does it break human rib cages, like what Marcus found out, it could also make you escape death.
Do you think Garibaldi brought one of those to his new board? Those new boy.
I wouldn't blame him if he did.
Yes.
And, that was another interesting scene in this episode where he brings in the brand new board made up of troublemakers.
Yeah.
Just like he was. He was given by Elsa chance just like he was given a chance. And it's...
Well, that and Garibaldi brought some of them back that were fired because they were being troublemakers in the right kind of way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. So, I will bring up your comment here, Colin. And I do remember... I've been rewatching seasons 9 and 10 of Stargate SG-1. I got a bit of a Vorlon Shadow vibe from the Ancients and the Ori. Yeah. Colin, I do get that. I do get that reference. So, I can see the parallels there. So, But just
honestly, it's one of my favorite tools in sci-fi. Have two big-time precursor races that have diametrically opposed outlooks, and voila, you have a way to have all sorts of conflict.
it's true.
Love it.
But just to say this briefly, it'll be 3 years in November when I started this journey, when I started this review of B5, and it has been honestly one of the most rewarding things I have done, and I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the discussions we've been able to have, the laughs we've been able to share, the deep discussions that we've gotten into here that sometimes don't even have anything to do with the show itself, but lead us off onto these insightful little rabbit trails. And I will make this one other little remark. When this all comes to an end, I quote Mithrandir, what he said to his young hobbit friends. I will say, do not weep, for not all tears are an evil.
Ooh, and I didn't even notice this. This is more pertaining for Sleeping in the Light, but apparently Vadava took Marcus's fighting pike and she had it in her office. Huh. I'll have to look at that when I'm on the rewatch to see if I can spot it, because it says it's supposed to be in her office somewhere in Earthdome. And then she brought it with her when she served as Ranger 1.
Mm-hmm. Vadava the Strong. And Trink Tungson's mentioned this earlier, Finn. I don't know if you've seen it, but he's saying you might like the stainless steel rat. So I don't know exactly what that is, but definitely, Fiona, check it out.
I do have that on my Kindle because my dad's actually reading it first or looking at it.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, guys, any other thoughts on this episode before we do wrap up?
For me, just one thing: how civil Talon and Veer were to each other when Talon couldn't get into Shakar's quarters, and it was just a really friendly conversation, and Talon treating Veer with such respect that shows Centauri and the Narn can have a future, and they have a much better relationship starting off than the adversarial Londo and Shakar. And Shakar refers back to Talon, look back at how I behaved when I came here first. I think you'll find it amusing.
Yeah, to take a look at all the kind of like the home video recordings of this is Jakar like 5 years ago. Oh my. Heck, and even Veer, again, he's changed a lot. He's a lot more confident. I dare say he's even more confident than Lanier ended up being.
Yeah, I would have to agree. So, well, anyways, folks, that's going to be the review for this afternoon. I do want to thank my fellow council members. You know them, you love them. Mountains of Elysium, Fiona Wolf, and of course, Lord Koj, even though he had to return to Medbay, they just keep dragging him back in. But as I mentioned, next week, we will be doing a live watch along for River of Souls, and then the following week for Call to Arms. And then, of course, we will wrap up season 5 and the series with Sleeping in Light. So I do want to let you all know I will be going live this Saturday night, 8:30 Central Time, with another modern Marvelous review, and I'll be bringing you all my thoughts, and depending on who else shows up, on the Wolverine as I continue my X-Men franchise review series. So be sure, I've already set that stream up, so make sure you hit that reminder and be sure to tune on in. So, but with that being said, you all have a great rest of your week. Have a pleasant weekend, and of course, a happy early 4th of July to us on this side of the pond. Elysium, sorry, you don't have independence.
Wait. So
I say
how
that.
much
I
is
say that jovially. I say that jovially.
I know.
Nobody cancel me.
Wait. How much is the inflation on Freedom Day burgers now? Another 20%? Help.
I don't want to know, and even I work in retail, so I do know, unfortunately. So, but anyways, folks, thank you all for being here this afternoon. As always, if you catch us on the replay, leave your comments down below with anything myself and the council discussed or anything we might have missed. So, we will see you all next week. And until next week, this is the council saying 3, 2, 1. Zooty!
Hey,
Go!
Zooty!
Don't cross the keeper!
Nice.